Hello, my name is Don and welcome to the channel. In today's video, we're going to talk about the 1022 trigger line available from KIDD Innovations. We have all three triggers here to show you. We have the two-stage, the single-stage, and the single-stage trigger kit. So you're not going to want to miss this one, guys. Stay tuned. I don't know about you guys, but when it comes to aftermarket 1022 companies, KIDD's right at the top of the heap. You know, they make very good quality parts. Everything is very precise. Their barrels are hand lapped. They shoot great. Their triggers are very precise. They're very clean. They're probably the best triggers in the 1022 game. Now, 1022 triggers are not like your bolt action trigger. The geometry is a little bit different on them, and you don't quite get the candy cane-like break that you get from like a good bolt action trigger, like for a Remington 700 or a CZ457. The trigger geometry on the 1022 is a little bit different. But you can, and you do, especially if you go with a KIDD trigger, get the cleanest trigger breaks in the industry for a 1022. We're going to take a look at all three of KIDD's offerings for triggers. We have the two-stage, which we're going to take a look at right now, and then we have the single-stage and the single-stage trigger kit, which honestly, for the money, I don't think you can find a better trigger on the market anywhere. So let's start off with KIDD's two-stage trigger. Now, KIDD's drop-in triggers have aluminum housings. They have a really nice straight trigger bow. They have a smaller bolt hold open. I wish that was a little bit bigger myself. There are a few other aftermarket triggers. I just did a big trigger review a few months ago, and a couple of those triggers had a little bit bigger bolt hold open, so it was a little bit easier to find when you're trying to, you know, activate the bolt hold open. And the larger it is, the easier it is to find, and it really didn't get in the way or anything. So I'd like to see a larger bolt hold open on these. Now, guys, it works. You know, it's just like the factories. It works just fine. It's just something that after looking at all those other triggers, you know, that was one of the nicer things that I found on some of the other models that the KIDD is lacking. But as far as triggers go, that's the only thing these triggers are lacking. These things are, you know, they're next to none. These are the finest 1022 triggers in the game, in my opinion. Very well machined aluminum housing. We got a staked ejector. Everything's EDM wire cut. This is probably one of the smoothest, the best triggers for shooting bench rest or anything precision related. It has a regular push-pull safety. This particular model has the long magazine release, and these triggers have all the updated parts for the magazine release. Let's move the camera here and we'll do some trigger pulls on it. We'll do some, we'll check the weight on the trigger, and then I'm going to describe to you what the trigger feels like, so stand by. Alright guys, so I've got the precision chassis KIDD 1022 jigged up here, and we have another two-stage trigger in here. Now this is the 6-ounce pre-travel and the 6-ounce brake model. They do make this in a 3-ounce, which is the lightest one they make, so 3-ounce pre-travel and a 3-ounce brake. They're recommending those for competition bench rest only. And then they go up to, I think, 2.5 pounds. I'm not positive, but I'll throw something up right here so that you can see what the ranges of the weights of the trigger are. But what we're going to do here is just get a couple of trigger pulls for you. And the last time I did these, it was dead nuts at 12 ounces, so 6-ounce pre-travel and a 6-ounce brake. So here we go, 11.9 ounces. 12 ounces right on the nose. I think it's my positioning. Let me see if I can get over here a little bit better. Yeah, 12.5 ounces. So it's just my positioning. So you got a 6-ounce pre-travel weight and a 6-ounce brake. All right, guys, I'm going to give you a description on how this 2-stage trigger feels. So we've got a very nice, smooth 6-ounce first stage, solid back wall, and a very crisp brake. It doesn't feel like there's any over travel. So let's let up on it. So there's my reset. So yeah, I almost had to release the trigger all the way to get it to reset. I would say not quite all the way, but pretty close. So let's do that again. So very smooth first stage, hard wall, and just a good clean brake. And I don't really feel any over travel in this trigger at all. Here we go again. We'll let it up. So there's how far I had to move it to let up on that trigger to get it to reset. And there's what's left. So I don't know, there's a tad bit of movement. So you don't have to release the trigger all the way to get it to reset, but it's pretty close to all the way. So let's try it again. Very smooth 6-ounce first stage. Putting some pressure on the solid back wall. And guys, there's hardly any over travel in that trigger at all. I mean, the trigger, once you're on the wall, it moves just enough for the trigger to break. Let's let up again. Trigger is reset. Now I'm going to let up on it all the way so you can see how far we have left. So maybe 0.5 millimeter. So you're letting this trigger out almost all the way in order to get it to reset, but it's not really a speed trigger either. It's this is set up for precision shooting. So bench rest, anything where you need precision, this is probably going to be your trigger. Let's go to the single stage next. All right, guys, so we have the single stage trigger mounted in this tactical KIDD 1022. Now we've got a 16-inch ultralight barrel on this, and we have this in the 3 M-LOK slot tactical chassis. We have a Picatinny rail attachment on the back here, and I'm waiting for a nice folder stock to come in. So we're going to do a complete video on this little rifle right here once I get it all set. But anyhow, this is the single stage trigger. This thing is just super crisp. It's by far my favorite 1022 trigger that's on the market. So let's get a look at the weight on this trigger. All right, here we go. 1 pound, 2.8 ounces. One pound, 2.2 ounces. 1 pound, 6.3 ounces. So this is breaking at about 1.5 pounds or less. Normally it's probably on the lower end of a 1.5 pounds. I'm thinking like 1.4. That's usually where this trigger breaks. And this thing is very consistent. These digital scales, again, they're hard to get a good consistent pull on it. If you pull a little too much, they're super sensitive. So the trigger is very consistent as far as the pull weight goes. Let's get you a description on how this trigger feels. So we're just gonna start putting some pressure. There is absolutely no pre-travel in this trigger. So we're on the wall right now. I mean, it's right there on the wall. Now I'm going to start putting pressure on it, and it just breaks. It doesn't move hardly at all. It just moves enough to break off the shot. So pay attention to how little this trigger actually moves. So here we go again. So I'm just putting a little pressure on it, and it breaks. it's hard to describe. I mean, it's a very glass-like brake. It's just very, there's not much to describe on it. It's just a great single stage trigger. So let's do this again. So we're right on the wall. There's no pre-travel in this trigger at all. Absolutely none. So we'll apply some pressure and it just breaks. I mean, let's look at the reset. Look how little that trigger moves. The reset is like just enough to reset the trigger. It hardly moves at all. So here we go again. Yeah, I mean, this is my favorite 1022 trigger by far. So let's let up on the reset again. Look how little that trigger moves. Applying pressure, it's just, there's really not much to say. There's absolutely no pre-travel. It's a very light, crisp brake, and the reset is super short. This will give you really good split times, like if you're going to run it in Steel Challenge or anything where you got to do some like, you know, fast shooting. This is probably the trigger you're going to want. Short reset, very light pull, very crisp. It's really hard to beat the KIDD single stage trigger. Now, the next trigger we're going to look at is the trigger kit. The trigger kit is, for the money, I think it's probably the best bargain trigger on the market. Let's take a look at that one next, so hold on. All right, guys, so the next trigger we're going to look at is the trigger kit. Now, you do install this kit into your Ruger housing. You can install this in a BX housing or just your regular old run-of-the-mill 1022 housing. Tony KIDD did a very good video, installation video on this on YouTube, and I'll link to it in the description. It takes about 5 minutes and it's not difficult at all. If you can follow basic instructions, you can install this trigger. Now, for $130, this is probably, I think, the best bang for your buck as far as a trigger goes. And honestly, it's not much different from the single stage drop-in. The single stage drop-in is a little lighter, but this trigger is very similar to it. So let's get some trigger pull weights on this and see what we can come up with here. All right. Here we go. 1 pound, 5 ounces. One pound, 5 ounces. £1 pound, 6.3 ounces. This thing is very consistent, and it's breaking about the same weight as the drop-in trigger. So let's see if I can give you a description on how this feels. So there's just a little bit of lash. I mean, I wouldn't even call that lash, really. Tad bit of movement you can feel. Let's apply some pressure. It just breaks. Let's try that again. I'm applying pressure and it just breaks. Let's check the reset. The reset is, it feels like the drop-in single stage trigger. It doesn't feel a lot different at all. Let's pull on that again. Yeah, there's no pre-travel in this trigger. A good crisp break. I mean, it feels like their drop-in single stage trigger without the housing, honestly. Let's do the reset again. I mean, it feels exactly the same. Let's do another pull. Yeah, I mean, there's no pre-travel. It's just as crisp and just as light, according to my my trigger scale there. I wouldn't be surprised to know if this has pretty much the same internal parts as their single stage trigger. So maybe you're paying that extra money for the nice aluminum housing. Let's let up on the trigger again. Yeah, I mean, it's got a, it feels like the same dang trigger. Here we go, I'm gonna put some more pressure on it, and it just brakes cleanly. No pre-travel, a good light, clean brake. For $130, if you guys got 5 minutes to install this trigger, 10 minutes tops if you get a little confused. If you follow Tony KIDD's directions in the video I'll leave in the description, you will have no trouble installing this trigger, and it's a great trigger. I will probably be buying these from now on. All right, guys, so after testing both of these single stage triggers, the trigger kit and the drop-in single stage, I really felt like they were a very, very similar trigger, if not the same trigger, with just the different housing. So I've got both of these triggers here side by side, and I want to try them out back to back so that we can determine if they're is a big difference here. So we're going to try this one first. This is the Schillen build. We have the trigger kit in this. Let's charge this thing up. Of course, there's no ammunition anywhere in here, and both have been safety checked. So let's try this trigger kit out. So I'm pulling. Let's see what the reset feels like. Okay, we're going to pull it again. Such a clean trigger. Try the reset. All right, well, let's go over to this one. This is the drop-in trigger. This is quite a bit more expensive than the trigger kit. Let's see what this one feels like. It's a lit. Let's try it again. Let's try the reset. Oh yeah, the reset is a lot shorter than it is on the drop-in trigger kit. Let's try it one more time. So the trigger pull is very, very close. It's almost identical. But the reset is definitely longer on the drop-in trigger. So I would say the biggest difference between the drop-in trigger and the trigger kit is, number one, the aluminum housing that the drop-in trigger comes with. And the reset on the drop-in trigger is about half of what it is on the trigger kit. This single stage drop-in trigger, the travel of this trigger is about 1 millimeter between your pull and your reset. This trigger hardly moves at all, where the pull on the trigger kit, the installation kit, is real close to the same. I'd say the weight is almost identical and the feel of the trigger is almost identical, but the reset is twice as long on the trigger kit. So that's going to be the biggest difference. But guys, no matter what trigger you decide to go with, you can't go wrong. If you like a 2-stage trigger, in my opinion, KIDD makes the best 2-stage trigger in the industry, and single stage is the best single stage trigger, in my opinion, that you can buy, bar none. It's pretty much the lightest trigger that I've tried. I've heard the jarred trigger has a 1 pound pull weight. You know, I've been in contact with them. I haven't been able to get them to send me a trigger. I've emailed, I've actually talked to a guy. They said they were going to send one, but I've yet to see one. But KIDD puts their money where their mouth is. They're not afraid to send out their products for review because they make such good products and they know and believe in their products. So, you know, you can't go wrong with anything that you ever buy from KIDD. The fit and finish on everything I've ever bought is next to none. You know, and the function and performance has always been top notch also. So guys, you really can't go wrong with KIDD triggers. Now guys, KIDD has sent me some products recently. They did send me a couple of these triggers, but I also paid for a couple of these triggers that are in this review also. But they were very happy with the last video that I did, so they decided to make me an affiliate. Now, since I'm an affiliate, I am able to offer you a 10% discount. So in order to get that discount, go down in my link tree in the description and follow the links there and use the code, and that'll get you 10% off any KIDD Innovations products. Now, if you do decide to use that affiliate link, I will earn a commission, and believe me when I tell you, it's greatly needed. It's very expensive to run a YouTube channel, especially when you're newer. But guys, that's pretty much all I got for you today. So if you like what you saw, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you like what I'm doing here, go down there and hit that subscribe button. I can't build this channel without you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.